think the honorable thing for our species to do is deny our programming. Stop reproducing. Walk hand in hand into extinction. One last midnight, brothers and sisters opting out of a raw deal.
Do not trust any friends or family members. I repeat, do not trust friends.
Oh, he's the Home Alone guy. They tapped the Home Alone guy to do. No
well,
wonder
he basically they adapted the books. They like basically like transcribed, because the first two books were like pretty much screenplay length, and I think he just fucking was like, let's cook.
Yeah, for the most part it is. Yeah.
But then the third book is where like you're you know, you have to have proper screenwriting, because they get beefy, and then you need a proper.
Azkaban's not as long as it gets afterwards. It's the first three books are reasonable length. What I noticed about Azkaban is like all of a sudden the landscapes are lush and the transitions are elaborate, and like everything just becomes much more beautiful. And I think actually the fourth movie, which I did see, the one James and I talked about, it's a downgrade, and you get back to more of a Christopher Columbus vibe. And everything becomes sort of boring to look at again. It's still better than Christopher Columbus, but I think, man, it's a real shame that Alfonso, whatever. How do we pronounce his last name? Cuarón?
Well, how do you get like, he got Gary Oldman, and then realized he had Gary Oldman and let Gary Oldman cook. And then it was like everybody else, they were like, we have 2 more movies with Gary Oldman before he gets offed or whatever. And then they were like, let's just make him a fireplace and pay him $10 and just not have him on set at all. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You fucking dummies.
Well, like, that's what happens in the books, though, doesn't it? Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You're rewriting a bogus screenplay and hacking the book into 1/3 anyway. You may as well have more Gary Oldman screen time. Christ.
Well, they should put, if they were going to do that, okay, they could have just made him Dumbledore or something. That'd have been fine. He can play an old man. We know that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. that solves your problem right there. That would have been pretty all right. And you wouldn't have had all these. Yeah. Wouldn't have all these. Then I wouldn't have had to deal
with that fucking wacky ass Dumbledore number 2.
Yeah. Dumbledore number 2 sucks.
Patchouli Dumbledore? Fucking Joker. Get out of here.
Oh, jeez. You guys see anything fun lately?
Like, what do you mean?
I don't know, like a show, a movie. It's Christmas time. You guys, I'm sure you watched a ton of shit. Would you? I didn't watch this for my health.
I watched It's a Wonderful Life. I watched.
Oh yeah.
Is that where you're getting? Is that where you're going with this?
I didn't know if you were actually. Yeah, anyway.
Well, I could go either way. I was like, this might be a transition, or maybe someone's gonna be like, you know what? I don't want to talk about Harry Potter, and I'm thanks for the opportunity to stop. And
I watched
real
the
professional
Eras tour. Yeah. Unprofessional start.
And we're usually well known for our by the numbers introductions.
Yeah, we get actually that's like one of the more hated on things about our podcast. These fucking guys rambled on about some shit for 5 minutes and then started talking about the book.
Yeah,
movie.
And what do we say to those people? They need to think about what life would be like if they had never been born.
Agreed.
And it would make them happier. Because that's right. Here at the Extinction Agenda with James.
And Chris.
There we go. And so we were going to do something a little more dark this year, but this is pretty fucking dark. And so we're doing It's a Wonderful Life. And because Chris, it's one of your favorite films, and I'd actually never seen it. And James apparently had seen it, but had forgotten. I
saw it. Yeah, I needed a refresher.
Yeah.
It was so good, I forgot I watched it.
Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. That's that Zen enjoyment where
there's a chance
you release.
There's a chance I was partaking some type of. I fall asleep sometimes.
I understand. We're old men now. All right, so This was a banger. This is a proper classic, and I can understand why. I mean, I don't think I really doubted it. I did think it was weird. It did some things I was like, what the fuck is this movie? Like when it opens up and you immediately go to fucking Andromeda or whatever to watch the stars talk to each other. I was like, oh shit. I didn't know what this movie was. I didn't, and I think, not to get ahead of ourselves, but this movie was, as Chris, as you probably know, this movie was a flop. It was,
Really?
yeah, it wasn't successful in its time. It garnered a lot of nominations for Academy Awards, but it didn't make any money back. And the only reason it became a Christmas classic is because apparently in the 70s, it fell into free use. It fell into the public domain. And so television stations picked it up and played it constantly and kind of drummed it into the popular consciousness as a Christmas classic. And lo and behold, the propaganda machine made it so. Now, obviously, it is a Christmas classic, but it's that not every classic survives. And that's kind of a funny one. And having watched it for the first time, I was like, yeah, I can see how audiences would be turned off by this because it's hokey, it's corny a lot of the time. It's got a weird tone to it, and coming off of like 1946, people are coming back from the war. I don't know what people at wartime want afterwards, but they probably don't want this kind of story, which is very heart-wrenching, and they probably had enough of that. That's just my own like personal thesis, though. Like I really don't know. There's lots of reasons that things just don't work. Anyway,
I like that.
Yeah.
Hey, quick question: did you guys watch the black and white version?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, mine was in color.
I didn't know there was a color version.
Yeah, they colorized it in, like, I think in the 70s, perhaps again.
Okay.
Or maybe the
yeah.
60s. I don't know, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I have a really nice like a I don't know. It was like a high def, and it was all in color. I thought it was going to be black and white because I had watched the trailer, and then I was like, oh, shit.
Right.
Surprised.
Colorized version. Yeah, I got it here. I got it in the extras on the thingy that I purchased. It doesn't say what year it was.
Colorized?
Yeah.
It doesn't look What do you mean? I wonder what they do when they colorize.
Oh man, I wonder too. Well,
Like
when I watch a black and white film, like, I see the color. Like the color's obvious to me. It's not rich or anything like that, but you can just sort of see it there, and it pops. I know that's a stupid thing to say, but so I just like the original film has to have some sort of trace of the color still in it, right? Like I don't know.
I don't know.
Never thought about it,
man.
You have no idea what I'm talking about?
I've
No,
never.
that's fair.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever noticed color. I just like you sense the presence of like how it would have been, or.
Yeah, well, like I don't actually see it. I'm not
Okay.
hallucinating when I watch it. I just like it, but I forget that it's black and white, and I just see the world as it is. Like,
all right.
I don't know. It's a dumb thing to say because clearly it's in black and white. But
That's right. It's a good. Yeah, I don't know. I guess. Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. How they would do that.
there's no way we could answer that question either.
Yeah,
That's the devilish part.
That's what it's about.
It's about the Technicolor, yeah. You open up a can of Technicolor and you spray it all over.
Jesus.
So I don't know, Chris. This is one of your favorite movies.
Yeah, it actually kind of is.
Yeah. Like totally legit. So what's up?
So I only knew this movie from like Simpsons references and people making fun of it for the longest time. And then I don't know, about 15 years ago, I took a course. Shout out to Professor Karen Valahora, who it was all about the pastoral. And so pastoral is sort of like this idea of like idyllic communities or like spaces outside of the city where things are good and true and morals are upheld. But there's always sort of this anxiety or shadow of death or the presence of the city or labor hanging over it. Mm-hmm. So this this movie was one of the texts for the course, and she presented it as sort of a modern version of that. And when you look at it that way, this movie is really fucking dark. And I was shocked to know, because you know about the angel stuff. Like it's basically the sandwich of like hokey angel stuff, and then at the end bookended by more hokey angel stuff. But in the middle, it's just this guy's dark journey of hating his life and just kind of being frustrated at every end. And there's a lot of Freudian sort of readings of this movie where they go into, the idea of, well, we'll get into it, I'm sure, but George's relationship with his father, and the sort of frustrated desires that convinced him to take his father's own position. I mean, there's a reading where George basically symbolically kills his father. Doesn't actually, but it's the very night that he rejects his father's bank, and says, I can't picture myself stuffed up in this office. I can't imagine this life for me. I want to do something important, and kind of rejects his dad, doesn't respect him. And then that same night his father has a stroke, and then it's almost like a guilt reflex that he has to slay his father and then take his position. And then everything else kind of follows from that, just kind of being stuck in the town. It's his own personal hell. Like he just cannot escape.
Well, he can't choose to, like he's tied to the town by his sense of social responsibility or the guilt, taking over for his dad, maintaining his dad's establishment. But like, I don't get the impression throughout that it is his dad that's exactly motivating him, although he does think extremely well of his father. It's, it's all the people who are going to be out on their ass if he leaves. There's an entire working class of individuals who need him, because his dad personified. Potter says this, when he's like, I'll go as far as to say that, what was the guy's name? Peter Bailey
is the town.
Yeah.
The building alone. Yeah. It's true. I mean, everything you're saying is absolutely right. But I think George, like subconsciously, George's relationship with his dad is conflicted. Like even at the start, when when Potter's taking that meeting and he comes in as a child and he's like, you don't let him talk to you like that. You're the biggest man in town. You're bigger than Potter. And he's just like, he's built his dad up into this figure who's heroic. And the reality is something different. And there's just this conflicting, that George always has this problem with reality. Like, and you see it in his dreams as a kid. Like when he's like, I'm going to have a couple of harems and maybe 3 or 4 wives. Wait and see.
What a beauty.
Just adventure. And then it's sort of like he's just pure it at that point. And a part of him always is just not recognizing the reality of his situation or what the good in his life.
I think all of that is true, but I think that it would be, on the one hand, this movie doesn't work without Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Who is a goddamn genius. Like the more I see him as an actor, as an adult, as a man now who can supposedly appreciate art in a way that a younger James couldn't. I see him for what he is, who was like, he's dynamic and comedic and serious and gangly, he just has so many tools, but he's also like a big man. And I think though that I'm not going to say this movie, well, I'm going to posit an idea. This movie could have been a lot darker, felt a lot darker, because this movie doesn't feel dark. You have to think about it for it to get to realizing how dark it is. Because he's such a goof, he's almost like a Jim Carrey. Like Cynthia asked me, she was like, if they made this movie today, who would you put in the role? And I was like, it's got to be Jim Carrey, but like when he does a serious role, And I don't think he'd do a good job. I don't think this movie should be remade. But she posited the question to me.
That's a funny answer. Kate, when we were watching it, really commented on his body language. His body language, his mannerisms, his like you said about all the tools he has. He has this ability to like come into a room and be presented a scenario by other actors and just just drop his expression and make you feel what he's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's a very, like you say, it's a very animated. He's like a cartoon character.
Yeah.
And the movie is actually portrayed a little bit like that as well. Like it's hokey in that way. It's like the fucking Dukes of Hazzard. Every character is very like animated to double time, you know.
It's true.
But yeah, he had just such a great what a great screen presence and a charm, and it's I don't know, that movie's a joy to watch. I think it'll be like maybe even like a little Christmas classic for us. Kate really likes it. Funny little side note, the very first episode of Doctor Who had a moment, sort of like what a scenario would be like if you cease to exist. Maybe a little taken from this.
I see what you're saying. The new you're right. Yeah, it kind of did do that, didn't it?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, hey, you're right.
Check
and
it
was
out,
a Christmas.
Yeah.
If you like It's a Wonderful Life, you're gonna love Doctor Who. But yeah, you're right, James. Good parallel, good connection. The Jimmy Stewart, he and Chris, you might already know this, but he chose to fight in World War II. He enlisted. He was a bomber, and he suffered tremendous PTSD. And this is the first movie he made coming back from the war. And
I didn't know that.
And he, because like he has dreams about like bits of bodies like flying against the window and like getting gunned at, and like he saw some shit, even up in the sky. And then, like, anyone who's read Garth Ennis comics will know what we're talking about. Not that Garth Ennis is is a realist in any sense, but and I just thought it was interesting. Like I feel there's all these autobiographical elements in this movie. Like, he studied architecture. He wanted to be an architect. Jimmy Stewart did, and
really?
Just like George Bailey, and and then Harry Bailey in this movie fights as a fighter pilot in the war. And he's a decorated hero. That's not Jimmy Stewart, but there was just these little elements. And his dad, Jimmy Stewart's dad, apparently was like a good guy. He cut people deals. Like, I was reading in Wikipedia about like someone couldn't pay him something, so he let the guy pay him with an accordion, and then Jimmy Stewart kept that accordion and learned it and played it. Like, he'd bring it with him to sets. So I don't know. And then he names this movie as like one of his favorites, and I just like, I don't know. Is this like, I don't know enough about the man, and it's kind of stupid and grandiose to say, but like, I don't know. It's so him. Like, no one else could do this, for so many reasons, not just because of his abilities, but just his biography.
That's an interesting thing to do to him, to have. Well, I mean, I guess a lot of young men were driven to, the desire to fight in the war, but to come out the other side and with PTSD, and then to play a guy who immediately was like just dreaming about the war and like doesn't get his chance because he saved his brother and like got an ear infection that cost him his hearing, and like he couldn't fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah. One of those art imitating life, or like, I don't know, Frank Capra or the director. I mean, whoever was doing the writing on this, and this is where I get a little foggy on this because I can't keep track of all the old timey writers. It's beyond my ken. But I don't think they actually had. I think it's all ironic. Not ironic. Like, it's all coincidental. That like these parallels, which is even the weirder part. Like, who knows what life's a pretty sweet fruit. It's a wonderful life. So yeah. Anyway, but we haven't really talked about the movie itself yet. I like the fact that he's basically a 30-year-old guy, and he's playing a teenager at the beginning of this.
That's right.
That's one of my. I was like, nothing changes. Nothing ever fucking changes. We could never. adults are always playing teenagers for us, and it's so fucking perverse and weird. And we don't even bat an eyelash at it. And I don't even know why we do it. I know why we do it, because we're all a bunch of perverts. But yeah,
I liked his teenager portrayal. It was great. Great work.
He's a very serious teenager.
Mary was excellent. The Donna Reed character.
Yeah.
She was really captivating. And then the weird. I don't think it really added anything to the plot line, but I enjoyed Violet as well. Constantly pursuing him through all
timelines.
Yeah, like all timelines of his life. Basically, there's this harlot that would drop anything to be with him. And the funniest part is when he finally hits rock bottom at the end. He puts it all out there and it's like, you know what? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Describes this scenario where they're gonna go run bare feet in the grass, and she just basically has a freak out. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? That's
and the town is laughing at him.
There's
that ties into
a realization that he's just not that they were never. I mean, obviously they were never compatible, but just that connection he was looking for was only there with Mary.
Yeah. That ties into what you were saying about the pastoral, Chris. His vision of what paradise, like with a woman, which is weird because he never does that throughout any of this. But it's like he's like, look, let's go, let's run away. What do I want? I want a trad wife. Let's do it.
I mean, partially, yeah. I think it does go back to that first night with Mary, when they're, it's
after
just
the pool.
Yeah, and he goes on that weird, like, he's a fucking weirdo, like so charming, but like when he's just going on about like, oh, lasso the moon for you, and like the moon, you'll swallow the moon, and like moonbeams will shoot out of your fingers. See?
Yeah.
And like he has this like imaginative side that like he responds to. And Violet's just all reality, like, I'm not gonna run through the grass. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm gonna mess up my shoes or whatever.
Yeah, she's a Potter girl.
Yes.
At Bear, yeah. And we see that in the alternative timeline. Even though she's getting hauled off, she was like, I know Potter. Of course you do, because he's a rich guy, and you're a gold digger. And because like we have to remember, George is rich. or ostensibly or visually, like he has a status within the town that probably appeals to her as well.
I don't think he does. He has a status, yes, but he, like, when they talk about, the neighbor's car when he flips out on his kids, like he's like, oh, like,
great scene,
good for them. Yeah, exactly. I have a very, like, I probably shouldn't admit this, but like there's a part of me that finds that scene very cathartic. Like when
yeah. We're here among friends now.
Yell at all those kids. Yeah. I love that line where he's like, he calls us a happy family. Why do we have to have so many children?
Call this a life?
Amazing.
At the very least, I understood what was happening in that moment. I was like, yeah, I've been there. I've just been like, does that noise have to be happening right now? And Jesus Christ. Yeah. So
if you have any kids, you've been in a room where a child's doing some fucking thing.
Yeah. And you're
repeating your name, repeating the same questions, repeating a sound, you just pop some days.
You just wish that you could stop it. But you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to break that relationship that way. But good old George Bailey is there to do it for us.
Yeah, thanks, George.
And then when he winds back up, he's like, I told you to play. What's everyone looking at me for?
Play that piano. He starts bawling.
Well, before he freaks out, like he hugs and kisses like he's bipolar at this point. Like, it's such a fucking breakdown. And okay, so since we're here, I'll go into gripes about this, and maybe this will be an opportunity for us to like get like fuck Uncle Billy, fuck that guy. That's such bullshit. You lose $8,000 and you can't fucking remember, and like he should have never been in charge of anything. Even like he was such a dolt from the beginning. But what especially galled me was that it was like a hack writer job. It was like we have to initiate a crisis. What do? We take this character who otherwise is kind of like a charming, forgetful guy, and we're going to turn him into someone who has Alzheimer's. Just for the plot device. And then he's going to come in with a sack of money later, and we're supposed to forget that he's a fucking asshole. I hate Uncle Billy.
I hate Uncle Billy too. Also, I'm with you there. And the other thing about Uncle Billy is, like, let's not forget, like, as evil as whatever the Potter guy is, that's a bank. That's a bank that stole money from somebody. That's fucked. Banks will never do that. That's not a good writer. Oh, wow. They do it the right way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that's funny. But but it's just one of those things. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, you know where you got the newspaper, you know the location of the money, you know whose money it is, you own the bank, you steal it. I get that there's like scenarios that you have to come up with, like you say, to push the plot, but that's just one that's just like, that's infuriating. That's just like I don't know.
It's a stretch for sure.
Yeah, the fucking Ghoulies plot's better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the long simmering like hatred of the Baileys, I guess, but and the fact that he's a total scumbag, but yeah, it doesn't seem it all comes together in sort of a weak moment. Even like they go through great pains that when George goes to Harry, he's like, oh, why don't you call your friend Sam? Who's like, yeah, like a fucking factory owner who makes millions. And he's like, oh, I just couldn't get a hold of him. He's in Europe somewhere. So it just kind of like depends on the fact that it's happening in a panic.
Yeah. No, I get it.
But Uncle Billy, why does he live with squirrels and owls and shit in his house too?
Exactly.
He's like some sort of simpleton. Like,
he's like he's like fucking diminished all of a sudden. He goes from being like a steadfast bank manager to being like a fucking like a moron. But
he always has that crow around. I love that fucking crow.
Yeah, that is cool.
Is there? Do you know anybody who's written about the crow and what it could mean or anything like that,
no,
or is it just?
Actually, no, I didn't even think to look at that. No,
that's interesting. There's got to be something going on there. Like it's so. I don't know. It's so intriguing.
So part of nature and like just like I don't know. It's like almost like a St. Francis thing, like where he's just like so simple that like animals love him or something. But
yeah, I was thinking of John. I was thinking of John the Baptist when you were describing him as. Living with all the animals and stuff, like Jesus found John the Baptist in the wilderness. But I don't know, Uncle Billy is not John the Baptist. So so the analogy fails completely, but it did.
The one thing I noticed this time, and I never really caught this before, was that the moment where he puts down the money into Potter's like newspaper or whatever, he's defending George. Like he's the he's Potter's basically like saying like he makes some dig about George Bailey not going to war, not being a man, and he's like, oh, like somebody has to stay here to fight the scumbags that not everyone is in Europe or Japan.
Yeah, he gloat, and I guess another thing that bugged me is like the money is lost because Uncle Billy shows moral weakness. He gloats. He shows pride in that moment. And that's where the moral error produces the economic catastrophe. And of course, and what's his nose capitalizes on it, Mr. Potter, who I'm sure we'll talk about eventually.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I think it's really cool that he steals $8,000, sets off this entire chain of like almost suicide and arrest and destruction, gets away with it completely.
Yeah.
He's thwarted, but like there are no consequences coming to him.
Well,
I think that's so true.
Did you see like this is actually a big thing with the movie is that because there's the Hays Code that gets established in Hollywood, I think like in the like late 30s to the 60s or something like that. But it's basically the original comics code was based on the Hays Code. So there are certain things that you couldn't do, like you couldn't have profanity or nudity or like sex, things like that. And villains always had to be punished unless they were shown to repent. So this is one movie that didn't, that doesn't happen, and they slipped the code, like nobody even noticed, I guess, because the ending is so ramped up.
Yeah.
But or I mean I like, it's kind of funny to think that maybe they couldn't even recognize him as a criminal because he's rich, like he's not a common criminal. This is just the way the world works.
It could go either way, right?
Yeah.
I think the two go hand in hand, as a matter of fact. Like, how did it slip? It slipped for that reason. In the Wikipedia article, they were talking about how the FBI had a file on this movie because it badly portrayed the American upper class.
Nice.
Smeared capitalism and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, was Capra? I think he was investigated like McCarthy era too, right? Because he did have like very socialist edge to his movies.
Oh wow. I'll
buy
that. I'll fucking buy that.
Yeah. Or at least he thought there was a stretch, at the very least there was a stretch where he had a hard time getting movies made, and he personally felt that it was because like in his youth he was pretty vocal about like leftist politics.
Yeah, okay, here we go. We've got blah, 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 argues that Capra's disillusionment was more related to the negative effect of the House Un-American Activities Committee. Had the House Activities Committee interrogations of the early 1950s, blah, blah, blah. Capra himself was not called to testify, although he was a prime target of the committee due to his past association with many Hollywood blacklisted screenwriters. Yeah.
There you go, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Wikipedia. So, well, I mean, not that the House Un-American Activities Committee ought to have existed, or that the FBI should have had a file on this movie, but just goes to show, they are. It's not paranoia if they're not out to get you, right? Or it's not paranoia if they're out to get you. I said that wrong.
Well,
Potter.
Hey, yeah.
Oh. Mr. Potter. Is it Henry Potter?
He's which would actually be Harry Potter, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Not a coincidence. No, it's all connected, man.
Yeah. J.K. Rowling is now the
now the owner.
Miser.
So we talked about this with John Constantine. This movie is unexpectedly, it has angels, it has God, it's a very Christian movie. It opens up with a prayer, like the family is praying to God. That's the first thing that you see in this movie. And it's the people who are praying after Jimmy Stewart has told them that he's, after he's had his breakdown, and they're like, go pray for him. And so we hear the prayers, and then they go up to God. So, it's not a stretch to talk about any Christian imagery. And I thought about Mr. Potter as, when we were talking about John Constantine, we were talking about, one cannot serve God and mammon. And Potter is mammon in all of this. And we see this in a lot of ways. He's accumulation, capital, greed, all that shit, that Ebenezer Scrooge shit. And, we see this especially when, like, what if George Bailey, aka Christ, aka whatever, was never born, the self-sacrificing man who believes in the social good. If he doesn't exist, it turns into Back to the Future 2. Yes. With Biff. And like, it just, I'm not the only person that made that connection immediately. There's videos on YouTube where the two scenes are side by side. Like hyper capitalism emerges, but it's not capitalism. It's just gambling and sex and fucking and violence and
like Ontario's government.
That's right. Yeah.
You have to distract from the scandal, my friend. It's the only way to do business.
One that's also, it's the best business because the house always wins, and they're like, but the irony is that, like, what is he? Fuck. Sorry, that's actually, I've got two thoughts connected to that. One is, I was thinking of Potter's speech. when he's like, you'll give a loan to anybody. And what do you get? Is the quotes is like a discontented, lazy rabble instead of a thrifty working class. This is his definition of a thrifty working class. Like what's Potter's real outcome? It's not a thrifty working class. It's fucking it's Times Square.
Yeah, or it's like a little like small town Vegas. It looks kind of rad, actually.
It doesn't. It is pretty cool. But it also reminded me of
girls.
It reminded me of the opening of Yojimbo, where like what's the problem in the town? It's like it was infected by gambling, and it turns into a waste town as a consequence, where just like everything breaks down. The same concerns like that, like this metaphor of capitalism as gambling. We talk about casino capitalism nowadays, but like, and think that it's kind of a new term, but even back then, in the 30s and 40s, that's and up until the 60s in the case of Yojimbo, this was a going metaphor.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And like you go through the Black Friday, the Great Depression, all that, like a lot of people had this sense that doing anything in the stock market was essentially gambling. There's no way to win it. Yeah.
So anyway, there's a profound morality play here presented to us, and gripe number 2 is that it is somehow solved by knowing that what life was like if you didn't exist. Like, I don't think it actually solves. If Jimmy Stewart's problem is that he feels guilt and he's going to commit, well, first of all, he's going to commit suicide just for straight up economic reasons.
Yeah, it's
he wants to support his family.
Yeah, Potter mentions like you're worth more dead than alive.
Yeah, so that's the only reason he's committing suicide. It's not because he's discouraged. It's because he's desperate to protect his family. Like, once again, he's just going to sacrifice himself again in the ultimate way. And I don't think this movie accurately portrays that, because, like, at the beginning, they're like, what's the problem? He's like, oh, he's just discouraged.
Yeah.
I don't think he is.
He's living a life of fucking torment. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I'm under federal indictment, and my family's going to be penniless. So... And yeah, it's been revealed to me that if I just kill myself, my family will go on. But anyway, then they show him what life would be like without him, and it's just another guilt trip. Like, he never escapes guilt, no matter what.
Well,
and like, but he finds happiness in it.
So there is this Freudian.
Well, I don't know if he exactly. Okay. Sorry, I was gonna say I don't know if he exactly finds happiness. He basically like. It's like there could be worse scenarios. It's more like having a shitty job that you just realize pays well.
It's so true. It's it's just this manic episode at the end where he's still broke. Like, nothing's changed for him. He just hasn't lost $8,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, give us another 10 years and I wonder what his life's going to be. But yeah, goes back to, like, there actually is like a line of criticism. I wasn't able to access many of the articles because they're behind paywalls. But the thought is, so if you don't really buy into the Christian reading of this, and you kind of just take this in Freud, the idea is that things that you repress come back to you in dreams. There's a reading where this is sort of like this repressed, like all the things that George desires come out in this dream. And he's just kind of confronted with them and sort of like working through them in this way. And I don't totally buy that reading, but I like that reading.
So I don't understand. Walk me through it. So he's confronting Potter World, he's
confronting, Potter World, like this world where, he desires Violet, so she appears in this sort of thing. And, he's in a way, working through the idea of like, what if I didn't do any of this stuff? Like, what would be,
what does my sacrifice amount to?
What does my sacrifice amount to? Yeah. And like I guess what would the world be like without it? So maybe he is kind of coming to terms with it in that way, with just a sort of like hallucinatory vision of things. But do you know what my absolute favorite thing in the Potter world is? Like he's showing all this shit, like the chemist from the beginning. It's this horrific, like pathetic drunk. His brother dies at the age of 9, and so because of that, like this whole like transport of soldiers doesn't make it. The town's in shambles, like everything. But the breaking point is that his wife and he's like, where's Mary? And it turns out, like you're not gonna like it, George. She's an unmarried woman. She's just about to lock up the library.
She's an old maid.
Yeah, and her hair's back, and she has glasses, and she runs from him because he looks like a complete fucking lunatic. But like that's the worst possible fate for a woman.
What could she have? Why would she require glasses in this alternate universe? I guess from reading
she reads too much. That's right.
It weakens her already weak eyes. I understand.
From being undesirable, he can't see.
Oh, jeez. She just entered. Like, there's a
might
word
have found
for
a
that.
husband if she didn't do all that thinking.
Ugh.
Well, she was destined for him. It's
That's true. She is destined for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how they portray it or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm sure she
got a connection.
Could have connected with anyone else.
Like Sam, who was about to marry
Sam.
Her, and,
that's right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, she would have just been with Sam. Like she didn't meet. Yeah. Okay.
Well, and I think there's like something very simplistic about it. And like you kind of alluded to this too, but this is almost like a trick from the angels, like where just because he wasn't around doesn't mean his brother was going to die in the ice. Like another kid could have pulled him out, or like maybe he wouldn't have been sledding with his bigger brother. Like there's just all sorts of things could have happened.
And then he could have, that guy didn't actually have to give the other guy poison. The chemist didn't have to accidentally poison. Like slight detour, but I want to make sure it gets mentioned. I was reading that that old man was actually drunk, and that old man actually hit that kid, and that blood's real.
Oh shit! What?
And the kid acted through it.
Oh my god!
And the old man acted through it, and then cut, and then he hugged the kid.
Wow.
And that's wild, and like, stop, don't hit my ear. And I was like, wow, that's pretty fucking dark. That's good makeup.
That's uncomfortable. That scene. Yeah, don't hit my sore ear again.
Oh, that scene was uncomfortable. Like that kid was terrified to get hit again.
Yeah. So watch that scene again, knowing that it's real. It's child abuse portrayed in a Christmas classic. It's such a beauty.
How is that possible?
Well, man, hate doesn't say you can't beat a kid.
Jesus.
Are you saying? Sorry, did they make him drink so that it would be more realistic, or like?
I don't know the answer to that.
I would love to know that. Wow.
I would love to know the answer to that too.
Jesus.
You know what would help?
Method actor.
Yeah. You need to do the method. The method didn't even exist. This guy invented the method. Beat a kid.
Oh my god. I can't believe it made the final cut, and I can't believe the old guy still made cameos at the end of the movie. I guess back then they were like, "Oh, it happens to the best of us, Billy."
Well, no, Billy apparently, like writing in his memoirs, he remembers it like he does. It didn't traumatize him. Like he was hugged by the old man afterwards. It was just like it was just this thing. It just happened. Wow.
God.
Yeah. Wow. Wild.
Yeah. You know what else is uncomfortable? That I love that scene where George goes to, like his mom keeps pushing him to go visit Mary, and he won't. So it's sort of like where they get together officially, right before the wedding, in fact. But when they're on the phone together, he's just, and I guess like there's this real tension of like he's really trying to deny his attraction to her, and because he knows that if he falls in love with her, he's going to be stuck in this fucking town, So Yeah, but then when they're on the phone together, he just grabs her. He's like, I don't want part of any of this. I'm gonna do what I want to do. And just like she starts weeping, and you're like, oh, is this really the guy you want to marry? He's really unstable.
Yeah, because he comes in and he's a real, like, she loves him. She's loved him, in a very unrealistic fashion.
Yeah, for her
like
whole
a
life.
pure love. Yeah, and she wants to rekindle that night that basically her dad, the dude's dad, died. And their relationship got like derailed by that, and they're reuniting, but she hasn't forgotten. And he's such a fucking jerk about it, because like it's the only space in which he can rebel openly against the choices that he's making, because like he's constantly driven by guilt to carry on the family tradition, and this is his outlet is against her. Like he takes it out on her essentially.
Yeah, he does.
Both here and in the final scene, at the end when he has the blow up. Or even when he's walking, he just sells someone a house in that valley thing. I forget the circumstance, and they're walking to the car together, and he kicks the fucking door.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're just like, these are like, this is the space in which he feels he can do this. And that's not just sexism in this instance. It's also symbolic of like something like, because she's the pastoral, she's the thing that will.
Well, I think there's arguably, I noticed this when they first get together that night where they go to the dance and they go to that house where they end up living, and she's like, I'd love to live here. And he's like, I'd never live in this place, even as a ghost. Yeah. He's throwing rocks, and he's like, if you break the glass, you get a wish. So he wishes that, he's going to go to be an architect and like, but whatever, like do all this adventure stuff. And then she throws a rock and hits it. And he's like, what do you wish for? And she won't say. But like her wish basically shackles him to the town. Like symbolically, her presence does, because she wants to stay there. And I think he knows the whole time, because it's not written that he's going to be stuck there. It's always like he's covering for 4 years, and then his brother's going to come back and take over so that he can go to college. But then his brother gets offered a job, and he just out of goodness, he's like, okay, I'll keep doing this.
Well, his brother enters into another family through marriage. That's what stops it. Like he can never get in the way of the family unit. It is the fundamental organizing principle of George Bailey.
Yeah.
And like even if he has all these dreams to escape the family union, like it is supreme. And he must uphold it. And he must do so through capital, but he must also not do so in a way that enriches himself. And she supports this. She loves him for it.
And that scene, that fantastic scene where like it's the stock market's crashing and like all the people want to cash out their money, and like it's a credit union. You can't do that. Like it's like you're helping each other buy these homes. Like what are you gonna do? So he has to use his own money to like close out the day so that they can stay open.
Yeah.
The wedding money. And
they celebrate the $2 or whatever, and he comes home and and they're in that dilapidated house, and it's a home. Like it's not. And this gets back to the St. Francis thing. Although it has marriage rather than celibacy, it is ultimately a celebration of the frugal and the willingness to sacrifice, basically live in a cave for the good of others. But he turn a cave into a home, painstakingly. That speech. Like Chris, you were talking about how this movie has resonances with the present day, and James, I was thinking that this movie would especially please you given its message about housing in the current housing crisis, where like it costs millions of dollars to get a home right now. And it's essentially the case in this era as well, only they talk about $5,000 and $10,000. Like it was.
Well, it's I don't know. It was one of those things to see the sort of people all like sort of like he had a hard time coaxing them, which which was funny that they didn't really want to stand with him, but then they did in the end. I don't know if it like I don't know if the moral came across. It was like, if I beg for my life, these people will realize that I did them some good. Like, it was kind of a weird moral that way. But yeah, it was funny there was a comment that I was kind of attached to, where they were at one point they were talking about how like George Bailey was on one of his tirades, which he had a few of in the show, but he was basically like, what it's not fucking it's not good enough to, or it's not in your playbook to basically like let these people have a decent fucking like a room to live in with a bathroom and a couple of beds. Like you have to take everything from them, like and then you think of the shit we hear today, and the state of the housing market, and you can't help but feel lied to or manipulated, or that there's not more people could do to not make that so that that's happening, but
well, we don't have enough George Baileys, we don't have enough self-sacrificing. And I mean this facetiously. Well, no, I mean this actually seriously and facetiously. Like, we don't have a socialist spirit amongst us. Like the Christian socialism, which is a problematic phrase in places like, I don't know, Germany. But nonetheless, it's a real movement. Like, and I don't think we need more Christianity, but we certainly need more socialism, because that's what allows for. Well, that's what I think allows for housing. Like, maybe I'm mistaken.
I don't know. It feels like nowadays you are, because it feels like, I don't know, just pandering to big business is the first step. Second step is, because we literally had a partial socialist coalition in our current government, and it wasn't enough to not just pander to big business and sewer the little guys.
Yeah, I think we've been at that business for a good long while here in Ontario. Whatever the government.
Not just Ontario, I think federally too, which was just surprising.
Sure. I mean, we can't. I have troubles speaking for any other province, but yeah, I suppose federally as well. But anyway, we're not a Canadian politics podcast. But yeah, it resonates. But
I'm
watch
sure
it,
shit's not good in the world either. I think that's a
yeah. I think anywhere that hyper-capitalism or what we would have called once upon a time neoliberalism has dug its ugly fingers, this movie resonates. Or ought to resonate. Yeah.
There's just not that big a gap between 1919 and like 2019.
There isn't. There really isn't. And that's one of the things I have. I have this conversation with time to time with some people, is like a real misunderstanding about like what, like, the boom and bust cycle of capitalism is. Like, it happens all the time. And I don't, like, everybody's like, oh, they just remember the next one that's going to happen, or maybe the one that happened like just a little before there. Like, everybody remembers 2008, but there was one before that, and before that, and before that, and there always was, and it used to be wild. It used to be fucking wild. Like, reading in the history books about like how capital would go up and down, and like the stock market would go up and down, and how often like these massive fucking depressions would just hit.
Yeah. Well, banks had no regulation, right? So they would just they could lend out all their money and just be like at the brink of disaster at any given chance.
Yeah, it's fucking wild. And
they still have that in the States. They're still like semi loose with regulation. So they on this most recent sort of downturn, you saw a few of them bust.
Yeah, early
Absolutely.
on.
No, even midway, there were more.
Yeah. So there's we already said it, but like, this movie will have an evergreen status as a consequence, because it's ultimately about like people's basic social reality in a capitalist environment and like trying to survive and stand together. You know, that's it. It is a Christmas Carol story in that it's about Ebenezer Scrooge and whatnot, but it does it a different way. But it's not an inverse way, like in it. Well, I guess it is an inverse way, whereas Ebenezer Scrooge, the hyper capitalist, learns to be moral. And not that George Bailey learns to be moral through this, but he learns to be more moral.
Or to appreciate what morality brings him. The sort of like like middle of the road existence that goodness leads you to.
Oh, that's a beautiful home he has, rich. Though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, I don't believe that. Like you were saying that he's still kind of broke at the end of this, but like nothing about this guy is poor. Not a blessed thing.
I actually,
aside from the fact that he lived in the slum for a brief period, but
do you know what Potter offered him? I actually saw there's a note on the Amazon thing that giving an equivalent. So he said he made like something like $45 a week. But what Potter offers him is the equivalent of about $375,000 per year in purchasing power. Right. So yeah, I don't know, like how do you have like this multimillionaire in this sort of like small town? I'm not totally sure, except that he's like clearly playing Monopoly.
And where is this place? So this isn't play, you know, and he's got the congressman's outside or the senator or whatever. Like
that's right. Well, that's that sort of like dreaminess of it. Like even to me feels like part of the, I don't know, almost like this a symbolic reality, because just the fact that it's just so weird that like every time George steps foot to leave the place, some disaster happens that pulls him back in. But I don't know, we don't have to get too far into that.
Yeah, I was reading that same a little bit about the buying power of the money that Potter would have offered him would have been equivalent to, like you were saying, it was almost $400,000 a year, which is basically like a 3-year $1.2 million contract. It's that's a big deal.
Yeah, particularly when you can buy a house for $5,000.
Yeah, for like a small town bank manager or whatever he would have been.
Yeah, I don't. What would that be in today's? Or no, that's with adjusted buying power though, right?
Yeah. Okay, well then, yeah. Still then, it's a good chunk of money for the, you know, comparing to whatever he was making, but
probably not a lot. It was almost like a small business, right? They were barely paying themselves to make sure that people were taken care of. And
yeah. I'm watching the scene right now where he comes home to his new home, his new mansion, and it's so carnivalesque, because like the taxi driver is dressed like a chauffeur, you know, and he takes his coat, and it's like a clown show. They find a simple comedic joy in existence, but somehow, you know, like that could never actually get anybody through. You can't live the place is leaking. It's like the amount of repairs they would have had to have done is just absurd.
Yeah, it was it was cute as an idea, and she had the like bed set up in the only dry room. His mannerisms are in that scene are what sort of give the audience their cackle. You know, because it's ludicrous that they're even in there role playing that this was a good idea. He's just thinking to himself that they're going to be hemorrhaging cash trying to even make this place pseudo livable. It doesn't take her like 8 years of, she basically does contracting work in the house for almost a decade while he works, something like that.
Yeah, I guess it also has children. It doesn't seem.
And Mary still found a way to sell fucking war bonds.
Yeah.
This woman's incredible.
Yep.
Yeah, he's really lucky he has her. She holds that shit together.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, she's holding the whole town together essentially by supporting her man, who thereby does the thing, you know, and it's that
would be a great modern remake, even like a comedic bent, like just what does she have to deal with? Yeah.
Yeah, just the whole story told from her perspective. Like the Margaret Atwood and Penelope. It's ready to go. The Anyway, I like, yeah, this movie's funny. And we teared up at the end, having watched it for the first time, when they bring in all that fucking money and he's saved, through capital, but through like charity in a true Christian sort of fashion. Yeah, man, tears to the eye. I'm not gonna lie. It's not. Yeah, it'll do that.
Yeah, man. I'm with you.
Yeah. Same with Since. She was like, I don't know why I'm crying. Like, it really affected her. Yeah, it's a hell of an impact. And so it's not just the fact that it fell out of copyright. It's not just the fact that it has James Stewart. Like something about it all comes together, like the social message and the final delivery at the end and the catharsis. And yeah, it's as much as gripe number 3. As much as it fucking pissed me off that it took forever and a day for Jimmy Stewart to finally accept the fact that he was in an alternate world. It was
He's
like
really stupid there, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Just at any point he's like, "Oh, just take me home." No, dude, this didn't work for you the last 3 times. Very, very frustrating. But despite all that, you get to the end and he's like, Merry Christmas, savings and loan. Yeah, just very
Uncle fucking Billy.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna forgive Uncle Billy, though. Still don't. That guy better not talk to me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's this little Zuzu that really brings it all home.
Little Zuzu.
Adorable. Yeah.
Is that the dog?
No, that's the daughter who's sick in bed. She just gives him the rose petals.
What the fuck? Her name's Zuzu?
Yeah, they call her Zuzu. That's got to be a real name or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Great name. Yeah, I guess that's the I forgot about the rose petals. That's such a dad trick. I've done that.
Totally.
Not with the rose petals or whatever.
Yeah.
Just
I gotta fix it. Yeah. It's all good. It's the same.
Fix stuff by jamming it in your pocket.
Or just like lying that I fixed it. Oh yeah, it's fine. Just those dad lies. I'm sure I've told many a dad lie in my day. Because kids, they just want the illusion of everything being fixed, or at the very least to be told it's been fixed.
Just like George Bailey's life.
Yeah, I don't want to end the episode with that.
Yeah, you do.
God damn it.
Now, all we need is a little energon and a lot of luck.